Well, I know what's going through his mind. I'm sure he thinks to himself, I could have won. I mean, everybody rationalizes, and I'm sure he's thinking that.
So, Bob, what was your reaction to last night's results?
I was shocked, Morgan, and thank you for having me. I was disappointed, distressed. I thought that she did the perfect close in the last 2 weeks. She was sharp. She got it down. At the beginning, I was a little critical of her in terms of she was swirling around, not getting to the point in what she was saying. And boy, did she get it down and become a phenomenal candidate in those last 2 weeks, just getting to the guts of everything she wanted to say. So I was really disappointed, and her close was so warm and so welcoming, and bringing everybody together and establishing coalitions. A lot of the same things you and I both just watched the concession speech. So, she's still making that point and making that her mission to bring people together, not tear them down, bring them together. I thought that's what America wanted. I had no idea that we really had such a core of people and a majority of people that think being brute and bullish is the way to go. I just was dumbfounded that that was going to be a winning formula, and I thought it would not be. I was convinced it would not be. And so, and also on her platform, she had it together where she wanted to help small businesses. She wanted to protect healthcare, keep driving healthcare prices down, uh, build housing up, do the things that really needed to be done. I loved her little line. It was a little kinky, but a to-do list instead of an enemies list. And I liked that because it really, although maybe that just let people start thinking, that what really drove, I think, a lot of the negative votes. And I said in one podcast of Bankley Thompson from the Detroit News, I said to him, one of the reasons she lost, I guess, was she is a woman. And America, unlike Britain, you mentioned Theresa May and Margaret Thatcher, and Israel had Golda Meir, and Mexico has a woman, and Pakistan had the wife of the premier become we're behind the curve on that. But I thought we were ready, but maybe not ready for a mixed race woman. I don't know. I think there was a lot of bias in that among both black men and Hispanics. I think there was a lot of bias involved, a lot of resentment, a lot of jealousy. Uh, I'm just searching for answers, and the fact of greedy, bigoted. I just I'm having difficulty coming up with other answers.
So, you think that when the historians look back on this election and they talk about why she lost, it will fundamentally be because she was a black woman?
A black and Asian woman, in a mixed marriage. I mean, to me, that makes no difference. To most people, it should make zero difference. But I think that may be part of it. And I couldn't believe when Trump the other day was saying, "My skin is so white. Look at my white skin. See my white skin. It would be darker if but I don't have time to do that. So I'm not tanning." I couldn't believe he was just so appealing to the white nationalists that way.
Do you not think maybe it was Joe Biden that cost her the race by, saying that he was going to run at that age, and taking so long to drop out?
That's a theory that a lot of people have, is that if he had dropped out 6 months ago and allowed open primaries and the convention and everybody to figure it out, he had said that he would build a bridge to the next generation, and then he sort of went back on that promise. I think people resented that a bit, but he did so much. He saved it. Bush said to him on the stage at the inauguration, Bush too, that you saved the country. And it's unbelievable that he was able to beat Trump and stop him that time because of the Charlottesville rally, which drove him with the Nazis and holding the placards, and his horror at that process. Now we find out he's a guy who has Mein Kampf on his bedside. So I mean, what do we got? And he's making calls to Putin and giving him our COVID machines. So I don't understand. And the FBI warned Trump in the beginning. They warned him, saying, this guy is Russia linked. You've got to be very careful. You can't bring Flynn in. He brought Flynn in anyway. By the way, a little piece of knowledge that all of us should appreciate. You know that Jill Stein was in the same lunch with Putin in the same photo. Same photo. So Putin's got her, and he had her to chip away at the Harris numbers, also would have been the Biden numbers. I do think that yes, Joe probably waited too long, and he's been a lifetime friend. I was at his house when he first ran for Senate, and I remember he went by some portrait unveiling, and I turned to Pat, who you just met. Let our viewers see Pat. Hi, wave again. And he, and I said as he walked by, I said, I was at his house when he first ran. He looked at Pat and he said, "That's exactly right." I mean, he remembers these things. So,
Mm.
I have a real feeling and worked with him over the years and decades since then. And I was very disappointed, but he did not perform well in that debate. And his voice was getting softer and softer, and his walk was becoming a caricature of an older person. So it was very difficult for the party not to change it up if they could. And I remember when he said 3 days before he pulled out, I'm going to just hang that up. 3 days before he pulled out, he said, only the Lord Almighty could persuade me. And I guess the Lord Almighty turned out to be Schumer, Pelosi, and Jill Biden. Uh, so that's basically what happened, and I think it was the right decision for the party. I think he might have lost by 10 or 15 points. It might have been a terrible thing. All the polling, for what it's worth, because it was so off on this one too, but all the polling showed that Biden was way behind where Harris brought it to.
So you said that you're a lifelong friend of Joe Biden. I mean, what do you think is going through his mind right now? Because he dropped out of the race because of this pressure. Um, despite the fact that, in his eyes, he was the one man that was able to defeat Donald Trump. Um, he's ending his decades of life of service to this country, you know, with the possibility that everything that he's done in these last 4 years is going to be completely unwritten. And now he has to invite Donald Trump into the White House, this person who has, you know, said said some pretty terrible things about him. I mean, what do you think is going through his mind right now?
Well, I know what's going through his mind. I'm sure he thinks to himself, I could have won. I mean, everybody rationalizes, and I'm sure he's thinking that. And maybe that debate performance where he was on jet lag and had a cold and this and that and all these stories about why he was so ineffective. But I've listened to his voice, and in all honesty, look, I was the chief of staff of the House Aging Committee. Ageism is no more justified in politics than it is anywhere, whether it's Ocasio Cortez or whether it's Joe Biden or Mitch McConnell, uh, or anybody, or Jim Clyburn, for example, is incredibly effective. Bernie Sanders is incredibly effective, but it's case by case, and that's how it should be determined, not as a matter of age. My fear, Morgan, is that this is going to make ageism a factor from now on and not let old people have the power and be effective. I used to joke when I was chief of staff of the Aging Committee under Pepper, and we brought in Colonel Sanders and we abolished mandatory retirement. I used to joke and say, I'm going to have a conflict of interest. Someday I'll be old. Well, guess what? Now is the time. I'm 77. So I don't want that to become the case. I think it has to be determined on the basis of capacity and merit. He was losing a little bit on the merit. He was losing a step. I don't think his mind was losing. If you listen to him, he was really together in his mind, and his stutter was not an age thing. That's something he had forever. I remember when Pepper was 80, and people used to say he's senile. No, he didn't have his hearing aid turned on. And if he did, boom, he was sharp as a crack. So it's all a matter of case by case. But he was losing ground, and I think the party made the right decision. As much as I love the guy, I think the party made the right decision, and I
Mm.
think he would have done worse.
So, what do you think are the next steps for the Democratic Party? Because as we're talking right now, the House of Representatives hasn't been called yet, but the Senate has a GOP majority. Trump has just won the popular vote and the Electoral College. And that also puts him in a place where the Supreme Court is in play. So all three branches of government can go, completely conservative at this point, especially if the House of Representatives does turn out to go to the Republicans. I mean, clearly this is clearly the country is saying they want nothing to do with the Democratic Party. I mean, what do they need
Now,
to do
that's an
now?
overstatement. You're talking about by maybe 5 points. They're saying that, but this these enormous hundreds of millions. Come on, so don't go there. That's a silly statement. They love a lot of the positions of the Democratic Party, and in fact, I couldn't believe that the women who voted for the abortion protection referendums voted for Trump. I couldn't. When I looked at that, that was one of the shocking things to me of the of the exit polls. Who is this person that keeps calling? Okay, so that's one thing, and the other thing of what do we need to do? I just got off the phone with Chuck Levin, who joined me. I was the youth voter registration director for the Democratic Party right after the constitutional amendment was passed, and I worked at the Watergate headquarters, and we had a whole operation where we were moving and shaking, and I got radio stations and we did posters and flyers and had events in every state after state after state after state. And I remember Terry McAuliffe, the chair of the DNC. We were having a party at the DNC, and we had the highest youth vote turnout ever, still to this day, by the way, 55% registered and turned out. By the way, that's a myth. Once people register, they all vote. You get 90% of people actually vote after they register. So we had the highest turnout ever to this day, even higher than Obama and Bill Clinton with the saxophone, Obama with the way he was really great with you. So I said to Terry, I had him against the wall almost in a corridor going up and down the stairs, and he said to me, "How'd you do it?" And I told him, "A lot of hard work. We had to do all these posters and flyers. We had radio stations. We put out 3,000 radio spots. We got VIPs and stars and actors and VIP Congress people. We did spots. We had a blitz going on how you." And so the thing that shocked me in this election, looking at that, and I'm going to do an op-ed on that. That's what I do. I won the National Press Club President's Award for recruiting young journalists and doing op-eds. We've done 1,000 in top papers from the Washington Post on down. That's actually my life, what I do. We're going to do an op-ed on how did the Democratic Party get overtaken by the Republicans in the number of new registered voters that they got. Our numbers were lower than the Republicans this time. That means we didn't do the homework. That was a very big deal in the whole thing. And that's what Chuck said to me. I told him I'm going on British radio, TV, London Times. And he said, well, make the point that what went wrong was the Democratic Party didn't do its proper job in voter registration this time.
Do you think that part of that was because Donald Trump was recruiting, you know, he was really focusing in on young men, and he was going on podcasts and things like Joe Rogan, and I was watching the news last night here in the US, and they were speaking to young men on college campuses in swing states, and a lot of them were saying that was the podcast, that was the thing that made me want to vote for Trump. These are people that have never voted before. And we saw Kamala Harris get so many celebrity endorsements, but they were kind
Yes,
of the
Bruce
same
Springsteen and
celebrity.
Katy Perry and Taylor
Yeah.
Swift, and how can you beat that? And but also all the Republican national security people that ever worked for Trump. I don't know how the American people don't listen to that kind of a swell and expertise. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. But maybe those celebrity endorsements, maybe the ones that Kamala Harris was going for just don't work anymore. Maybe, maybe J Lo isn't, the kind of celebrity that is really going to get people to go out and vote in the way that it did work for Obama.
Well, I think, and a number of us talked about this, that she made a mistake by not calling up Taylor Swift and having her come in after she made the endorsement and say, "Can you please join us on stage? Can you please make a plea that young people register and vote?" I think she was underutilized. To be sure, the ones that came at her and volunteered, fine, but Taylor Swift didn't. She could have gone after Taylor Swift, and I bet you she would have done it in this case. So there was a little strategic error there that was made too. But um, I think they help. I think they add credibility. And why would you not do it? But it clearly was blown off by all the mean-spirited people that wanted to just get their own way and think they're getting it through Donald Trump and think they should be telling their kids to go bully the opposite sex. I mean, I don't understand that. How do you have this guy as a model?
Bob, I finally wanted to ask you, I mean, what do you think that the next 4 years are going to bring for the United States?
why do I feel like it's going to be like when the Nazis took over and there was the resistance hiding? If Trump really does have the vindictiveness and go after the lawsuits, we've already seen the Washington Post and Los Angeles Times chicken out of endorsements because they wanted the space contracts that they have billions of dollars with and didn't want to be blocked out of contracts, but B, didn't want the vindictiveness of being prosecuted and persecuted by Trump, so they both backed off. I mean, that was some horrible stuff. We have to have, and I thought Liz Cheney's statement today was fantastic. All the institutions step up, whether it's the courts, in the minority in Congress, although it may be a majority in the House. We'll see. Not sure. I think so. The odds are a little slim, but it could happen. And the press. Everybody, judges, everybody has to step up and protect against the excesses of this guy. That's what we have to do. We're now in the resistance.